The American Revolution was against the billionaires of their time. And we are declaring independence.
What?
So we have the latest updates on the redistricting war, and I will tell you that the news is mostly good. On one hand, the courts have upheld yet another Republican map because it turns out that unlike Virginia and unlike Democrats, Republicans actually knew how to follow their state law. They were kind of competent for once, and it really is that simple. Leftists are continuing to throw a fit about this. Why does Virginia get struck down, but the rest of the states don't? I will repeat, it's very simple because you broke your own state law and we didn't. That's not our fault. But apparently, according to AOC of all people, who is currently injecting her unwarranted opinion on yet another political issue, apparently the leftists have a new conspiracy theory, which is the Virginia courts didn't strike down the map because it was illegal and unconstitutional, but rather because of billionaires. We're not exactly sure what that even means, but we'll share with you her latest humiliation and really just another Democrat meltdown over something that, let's be honest, is very substantially bad for them. So I do understand why they're pissed, but the brain dead and incoherent reasons they're trying to claw together why it's really unfair that our unfair political system is coming undone don't really make a whole lot of sense, but it's pretty hysterical to laugh at. At the same time, I think it's been the trend throughout the redistricting issue that the worst enemy of Republicans is not the Democrats, but rather themselves, because we have yet another state where, much like Indiana, their RINO state senate is making a huge, catastrophic, career-ending mistake by choosing to block the redistricting effort that is being led by everybody. Trump, the Republicans in the House, Republican voters, by the way, as they just showed in Indiana, overwhelmingly want their own elected representatives to advocate for their interests and play to win. But apparently over in South Carolina, I guess we spoke too soon on this yesterday, and even yesterday I was thinking to myself, I said out loud, it's sort of surprising that a state with so many rhinos would do something like that. Oh, they're going to redistrict? Well, turns out they're not. Turns out apparently the state senate is trying to block that whole effort. Although, let me just say, I don't think this is the end of the story, but we do have to talk about that as well. So we'll bring you both sides of this, but, I think it's frankly the case that we have an opportunity at 100% maximum victory. There is very little that the foolish, incompetent Democrats can do at this point to stand in our way. The only reason we're not achieving that victory is because some rhinos want to obstruct and only allow Republicans to have, say, a 70 or 80% victory out of the name of so-called principled conservatism, which we'll break down is not really all that principled. All it really means is, principled conservatives are the ones who like to lose. Principled conservatives are the ones who hand the political coalition that is literally assassinating us all the political power, right? But anyways, we'll get into all of these latest updates. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, the latest news today comes out of Missouri, yet another red state in the South, where their state Supreme Court has now upheld the Trump-backed redistricting that they did a while back. This was even before the VRA decision. This is, of course, a win that will hand Republicans up to one extra House seat in the midterms, and that's now clear, good to go for 2026, unlike Virginia. So everybody sit and point and laugh at Virginia, right?
This is just in. The Missouri Supreme Court upholding a new U.S. House district map backed by President Trump. It could help Republicans win an extra seat, and this clears the way for the map to be used in the 2026 primary and midterm elections. Thus begins the freakout.
So yes, huge legal victory, and cue the freak out indeed. We've been reacting to Democrats complain about this for several days. They're saying it's unfair. Oh, why didn't Virginia get to do it, but Republican states can? We're going to repeat, it's not that complicated. Follow your own state law, follow your state constitution. It's not our fault that you did this illegal special session that was open for 2 years and tried to ram it through under very shaky legal pretenses, and then it got struck down, which even people in Abigail Spanberger's office were warning the Democrats about. And then, because that happens under a relatively purple court in a rather blue state, what's the response going to be from these people? Oh, it was the MAGA Republicans. It's a big MAGA conspiracy. No, it's not. You guys are just incompetent. That's not our fault. How about do things by your own legal process? You're the ones who are always talking about upholding the norms of American democracy, right? So how about follow the law? Nobody's above the law, right, Democrats? But anyways, on that note, we've heard Hakeem Jeffries and all these people lose their minds. But quite hilariously, it sounds like AOC, for whatever reason, has decided to inject herself in this issue. Not sure why she insists on speaking all the time, why she insists on interjecting in any issue of substance ever. We've seen how that has gone for about almost a decade now, but still, nonetheless. Okay, so AOC's brand new theory on this is actually the reason the courts struck down the illegal Virginia redistricting referendum, because it was literally just illegal. They just broke the law, right? It is not because of political partisanship even. It's not because of, anything Democrat incompetence. It's actually because of billionaires. That is right. Billionaires, according to AOC, this is the new Democrat conspiracy theory, are actually the ones who somehow magically destroyed the Virginia redistricting effort. Take a listen.
The Virginia redistricting maps were just overturned this morning by judges that are largely financed by a movement of billionaires. And American inequality is at an absolute peak. And we have to ask ourselves if this is how we want to live as a society.
What is she even talking about? What does this issue have to do with billionaires? It's one thing to accuse billionaires of lobbying to get certain favorable regulations or maybe influencing something like, say, the Citizens United decision or antitrust or something. What does redistricting in Virginia have to do with that? You mean to tell me the rich, evil, greedy capitalists of the world were just super fixated on this influencing the court? Well, I tried to dig into it to figure out maybe if there was something she was referring to. And as you could expect, no, she's just making that up completely out of nowhere. Billionaires had nothing to do with the Supreme Court decision. Let's explain why, by the way. Because I thought maybe her schizophrenic theory on this would be, well, if Virginia is a state that has public general elections for the Supreme Court justices, maybe she's going to argue over the campaign finance stuff that progressives are obsessed with, right? Billionaires bought the election. Well, it turns out that's actually not true because Virginia does not have direct election of their Supreme Court justices. So literally, she's just making that up. What is she talking about? They're not elected by the so-called billionaires. They're rather appointed and nominated by the state legislature. And by the way, most of the conservative justices on there, because let's not forget how the politics of Virginia have changed, Virginia's not been a solidly Republican state for a very long time, decades by now. So, not doing the exact math there, but it is the case that if there are conservative justices on the court, logically, they would have to have been appointed likely before or maybe just right after the Citizens United decision, the very things that the leftists complain about with campaign finance. So that is even to say that the political context that these guys got nominated under, and keep in mind, there's a reason why the Virginia Democrats are trying to lower the age limit for the Supreme Court, right? Because those Republicans have been there quite a long time, has literally nothing to do with billionaires buying elections. What on earth, AOC, are you even talking about? As a matter of fact, the only election, let me point out, that billionaires tried to buy in recent times, I know this is going to come as a huge surprise to AOC, actually is, guess what? The Virginia redistricting referendum. It's worth noting you can actually do an easy dive into the campaign finances of that referendum, AOC, and guess what you will rapidly find? It was bought by billionaires on behalf of Democrats. George Soros and his billionaire network, as one example, guess what? Spent millions of dollars there trying to influence the vote, as you could expect, as we know every single time, on behalf of Democrats. But of course, this is the big LARP. This is the cosplay that Democrats engage in, where they say, oh, we're the party fighting the billionaires. And they're kind of maybe trying to play on the resentment of certain people who don't have a lot or whatever it is, right? People who are envious, etc., in order to maybe spin this idea that there are these populists who are fighting the elite. But please keep in mind, there's literally only one billionaire bought thing in the context of this whole redistricting issue, and it's the referendum that billionaires bought on behalf of Democrats. But as usual, I mean, if they're not lying, they're not speaking. What else can we say? It doesn't stop there, though, because AOC is about to provide even more stupidity. And unlike the last time where she could maybe make a rhetorical defense for it, basically, oh, it's just rhetoric or something, this one is not. In this case, she is just straight up lying about what the redistricting is actually doing nationwide. So take a listen.
When you are seeing states like Tennessee want to wipe out every Black representative on the map in these states, we have an obligation as Americans to stand with Black Americans and communities whose representation is being disenfranchised.
Oh no, can you believe it? Tennessee is taking away their only Black representative. Well, what if I told you, I know this is a big surprise to everybody, not only is that not true, not accurate, it's completely counter to the actual reality, which is Tennessee may, quite ironically, pick up an extra Black representative as a result of getting rid of Democrat gerrymandering. It's too good, but, typical AOC, right?
This is the Democrat that might lose his seat. This is the Republican that could replace him. So maybe ask yourself why they continue to tell you things that are so easy to disprove.
Yeah, well, as I said, why does she insist on speaking? But even if we're to play off that maybe she got a little detail wrong, she's referring to a different state or something like that, I want to note that I understand the point she's trying to make, and it's still really freaking stupid. And actually, Tennessee is a prime example, because you say, oh, well, if you take away the VRA districts, then that eliminates Black representation in Congress. Well, first of all, I honestly could care less whether there's quote unquote Black representation in Congress. I don't know exactly why that's supposed to be virtuous. Oh, well, can you believe this far left communist is in Congress? I don't want far left communists in Congress, but they're Black. So if you don't want Al Green or Jasmine Crockett in Congress, you must be racist. It's it's really dumb. It's really silly. And as we explained before, by the way, the whole point of Section 2 of the VRA is exactly that. Basically, in the name of DEI, in the name of affirmative action, let's just have more far left communists in Congress and then claim it's because of racial equity or some nonsense. But okay, even that aside, you can clearly see there are many of examples where VRA districts don't even produce Black representatives, because the white Democrat, because Black people vote that high in Democrat portions, right, can even beat in some cases a Black Republican. So, but all of that aside, I still want to go back to this. Why, the whole argument is that, oh, well, you need these majority minority districts because Black people need representation, which is therefore why they need their own separate racially drawn congressional districts. Well, my question there is why? Why actually is that a supposed necessity? Are Black people Americans or are they not, right? Are they a part of this country or not? Because if they're a part of this country, and guess what? If you draw a new congressional district, I don't know how to explain this to Democrats, but they still have the right to vote, right? You understand it's not Jim Crow or something, the Confederacy going on. In a new congressional district, those same Black Americans have the same right to vote. And you might say, oh, well, but if it's gerrymandered, it's going to be a Republican district or something like that. Okay, well, aren't you guys the same people? Let me point this out. Aren't you guys the same people who support the national popular vote, right? You want to abolish the Electoral College? Your argument there is people vote, land doesn't vote, states don't vote, people vote. Okay, well, in this same case, then why do you support drawing separate districts like that? Your whole slogan is one person, one vote. Guess what? That still applies. Okay, so what even is the point about this? But, again, we understand the point, They can claim all they want that, oh, well, the whole civil rights thing, that was about racial equality, which is why we have to have DEI and affirmative action, which is counter to racial equality. We're against discrimination, but the Black people want their own congressional districts that literally are segregated from other races and other districts. What this is all fundamentally about, let's understand, the basis of race communism is exactly that. Give communists more power, and they'll flip words and they'll flip concepts and they'll make things not actually make any coherent or logical sense, not because they're quote unquote hypocrites, but because they're power hungry communist lunatics, and they just use words to confuse people. So that's why it's very easy to just brush off at this point. Oh, the leftists called you racist. Okay, we don't even care. But anyways, all of that in mind, So that's AOC. That's the Democrats losing their minds. They're flailing, to say the least. The billionaires. and just spouting nonsense that's not true. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about the RINOs, though, because yesterday we brought you the news that South Carolina was moving ahead with a redistricting special session, and maybe quite naively, I was excited. I said at the time, well, maybe the RINOs are finally doing something, right? South Carolina, definitely a state known for that reputation, but hey, this is optimistic. Maybe it's a new day. It's not a new day. They're actually making the same exact mistake as Indiana. You may remember in Indiana, the Republicans in the House, they get it, more in touch with the base, etc. They just said, okay, we're going to redistrict. But over in the Senate, and because the Senate in many ways, both nationally and locally, oftentimes is an institution. It's full of these sleepy geriatrics who've been there forever, more corrupt, longer terms, things like that. The Indiana Senate basically blocked that, saying, oh, we're not going to listen to Trump or principles or something like that. And then, of course, what happened? As we covered a couple weeks ago, they all lost their primaries, like in a pretty overwhelming 20-point MAGA sweep. All these RINOs who were failing to redistrict lost their primaries. So you would think nationwide, you combine that, the political message that was sent, as well as the legal message, the Supreme Court straight up said that race-based districts are illegal, the RINOs would get it, right? You wouldn't see another obstructionist state senate try to get on their high horse and say that, oh, well, we actually don't believe that it's a good thing for Republicans to draw fair and legal and constitutional districts, right? But apparently not the case. So the South Carolina State Senate leader, a guy by the name of Shane Massey, and I don't know what is it with Republicans named Massey, but Shane Massey blocked the 2026 redistricting because, in his words, quote, South Carolina is stronger when we have a vibrant and viable Democratic Party. So, in the name of his quote unquote principles or fairness or whatever, his whole point is actually, as a Republican, we believe Democrats should be allowed to win even when they don't even deserve the win. We're still doing this in the big 2026. Take a listen.
I believe that our state is stronger with vibrant parties. I think we as a whole are stronger when we have a clash of ideas. I think that's true at the national level. I think it's true at the state level. We are stronger when we have a clash of ideas and we can discuss those policy goals. I will tell my Republican friends, Republicans are stronger when the Democrat Party is vibrant and viable. We are. Competition makes you better, y'all. We know it in the economic sector. It also happens in the political sector.
I mean, again, seriously, we're still doing this. We're giving these 1990s style speeches about bipartisanship and why politics is really about debating the free flow of ideas with one another. Actually, our country is better when we have a beautiful and strong, vibrant Democrat Party. Yeah, never mind the fact that it's literally a mainstream belief on the left that the people who are trying to actually have that free flow of ideas should be assassinated. Just ask the last guy that happened to. Like, it's yeah, never mind the fact the other side is literally trying to kill us. But, it's actually a good thing when we share a tent and have counsel with these people. And, maybe sometimes Democrats have good ideas, actually. Yeah, like what good ideas? Like flooding the border open with 20 million illegal aliens? Or is it, killing off people like Irina Zarutska, right? Literally believing it's good policy to allow obviously mentally ill, obviously violent repeat offenders out of jail to murder American citizens and then tell you it's a big conspiracy when it's happening, turning all of our cities into third world nightmares. Please explain to me, principled conservatives, what supposedly good ideas these people have. And even if you believe they're supposedly good ideas, I don't know, some niche thing on like healthcare or antitrust, please explain to me how that negates the total destruction, like literally lighting on fire of our civilization. And by the way, kill a bunch of us in the process because these people literally support assassination. But I think actually it's quote unquote principled conservatism or something. We almost use that term tongue in cheek, but we've just been dealing with this for so long. These people have no actual principles in politics besides losing. Okay, let's be clear about that. That's what they always claim. Oh, we're standing for real conservative principles. What is the real conservative principle? What is actually conservative about allowing the left to win and then take all the political power? Like, do you understand the function of politics actually is to win? Like, you actually, is that not what politics is? You have ideas. You want to implement those ideas. Politics is not, you have ideas, but you want the other side to get in power and Like what is like what is this, right? And I'm sorry, you know, we're not going to go on this whole speech again. We already did it in the Indiana video. If you want me to debunk the whole principled conservatism logic, but I'm like literally just so sick of these people. You know, I'm just going to say at this point that we're not going to keep on going on the whole song and dance of why, oh, actually conservatives should try to win. Actually, it's a good thing. All I'm going to say, as we did, as the MAGA base did, who gets it, to the South Carolina Republicans, is that much like the Indiana Republicans, hey, if you don't get it at this point, then you don't get it. And by the way, if you're so obsessed with losing, then feel free to lose because we're going to defeat you in the primary. You know, it's that simple, okay? And let me just say that this political battle is obviously not over. It is maybe even still being floated right now that a separate special session could still be called by the governor or whatever in order to get it through, because basically the RINOs in the state Senate today basically voted to block the redistricting special session. By the way, it's still possible that the courts could get involved here because you may remember it is the courts who actually mandated Louisiana and other southern states to redistrict off the basis that their congressional district was illegal. But on that note, let me just say to the South Carolina Republicans, you know, you guys are always the ones who are talking about like Ronald Reagan this, the Constitution that, you know, we're not going to follow the cult of personality of Trump. We're the real principled constitutionalist conservatives. And a lot of times these people give themselves that kind of name, okay? So let me ask the question then. What is constitutionalist? What is principled about keeping in place a literally illegal, unconstitutional congressional map? Because let's not forget, the Supreme Court just ruled that these types of congressional districts are illegal. They are against the Constitution. You guys are the ones who claim you're trying to uphold the norms and the standards of the Republic, right? The institutions, the Constitution, all these things. And yet here you are saying, actually, we should violate the Constitution. The thing that conservatives, the principled right-wingers supposedly are so obsessed with. We should actually violate that in order to help the left, and this actually somehow makes us the good guys. You are not principled. You are not better than us, okay? We don't buy your virtue signaling. You're certainly not brave. You people are fundamentally cowards. That is exactly what is happening, because these people know that any Republican state that redistricts and does the right thing is going to be flooded with the calls, the protesters, the mainstream media criticism from the left, and because they basically don't want to be criticized by the left, they don't want to face the same fire and fury that the left delivers to their opposition that we all deal with on a regular basis, okay? These fundamental cowards are saying, no, left, please don't touch us, please don't hurt us. You can go hurt everybody else, by the way, right? If you take power nationally, but just please spare us from your retribution because, you know, don't you know, we were principled. We helped you out. Don't know if that's going to succeed or not. All I'm going to say is, again, these people are cowards. They don't get it. We're so tired of the behavior, okay? Let them find out. Let them have the Indiana situation, you know, develop for them, you know. And if that's the wake-up call in life, I guess, that some of these legislators need to understand, oh, it's not really about debating a free flow of ideas anymore, is it? Huh? Yeah, well, yeah, it's not. Hey, maybe that'll be the wake-up call then. Have you tried losing your primary? I don't know. I'd venture to guess that's coming, right? We already saw that happen in Indiana. It's very clear what the voter base wants. I'm not sure what you people are thinking in this case, right? Maybe if in Indiana, the RINOs had won that battle, they'd succeeded, then, you know, maybe there'd be an argument, oh, you know, people don't really want us, people want you to do this, okay? The voters want you to do this. The MAGA Republican base overwhelmingly supports winning because, yeah, like people, like normal human beings like to win. I don't understand the point, but here we go again. It's exhausting to me. What else can I say? We'll leave it at that. Again, if you want a full breakdown of why their logic here is stupid, feel free to check out our Indiana video. I'm just not in the mood. I don't have the energy right now to give the so-called principled conservatives any more time. Again, their only principle is losing to the left, which by nature is not actually a political principle because, again, you know, if your first principle in politics is not, I need to have power to implement my ideas, then your ideas are meaningless, okay? We don't care about your lectures about, at the Young America's Foundation or something right next to Mike Pence. You guys have no influence on this country. You will never be able to even implement your supposedly amazing vision because when you approach politics, you don't play to win. And if you don't win in politics, nothing else matters. It really is that simple, right? But as I said, these people are actually just cowards. They're scared of winning because winning comes with consequences, right? Like the people actually push back on you. Do you ever notice, by the way, the people in politics who make the most change, they're the ones who cause the most controversy. They're the ones who are actually under fire, right? The ones who are changing things, i.e. the president, i.e. Charlie Kirk. Do you notice how the people who sit around and basically, the real do-nothing politicians or even the people who, basically have no influence, nobody cares about them? Yeah. Notice how when you're not under the spotlight, when you're not the man in the arena doing things, nobody actually comes after you, right? You don't have no king's protesters at your door constantly and all that stuff. Yeah, that's why, again, these people are cowards. They're literally just betraying you because they don't want to be criticized by the left and maybe other things. Maybe they literally just are really on the left in a lot of ways. But anyways, guys, we'll leave it at that. Until next time, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of these issues in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.